Hey, World Builders, welcome back to Shoutout Saturday, where I read your lore. This is number 21, and if you want to hear your own writing read aloud here, then come to our Discord. The link is in the description. All you need to do is submit a Build Together forum post and tag a Shoutout Saturday for the daily prompt in the daily prompt channel, and it will be read here. It sounds maybe a little complicated, I hope not, but it's really easy, and then I will read it aloud if that's what you want, or you could just come to the Discord and share stuff with the community there, and if you don't tag anything with Shoutout Saturday, nothing will get read, and it'll all remain there for everyone there to read, but will not be used by me in any regard. So now let's read some of the lore. So I actually missed a piece of Nugget's submission for day 213, so we're going to do down 213 again just for Nugget, and the prompt for that day was, what is an example of an extremely dangerous phenomenon in your world, natural or not? And this comes from Predwin the Great in the Discord and on TikTok. Nugget writes, the eye of a hurricane, an entry in Petrichor. Edward shuddered and shivered as buckets of water continued to pour over him from above. Neither he nor Thaddeus had any enchanted clothing. By this point, they would probably be drier if they jumped into a lake with their clothes on. They had been on the roof for hours now, waiting for help that was never going to arrive. Hurricanes were somewhat rare, but when they did happen, they were often devastating, a true show of the pain the gods feel being passed unknowingly to the humans they mourn. The worst of the storm was over now, but the rain never stops in Petrichor, and the winds still bit at them. Edward's head rested between his knees as he softly hummed in an attempt to comfort himself. Get up, Thaddeus said impatiently. We're leaving. What? No one's coming to help us. No one ever will. Things are better higher up. We'll be better on our own. But they won't notice. They're too focused on everyone else. Edward hesitated, looking out into the water so high it nearly reached their feet, even on the rooftops, debris floating down from the flood's path of destruction. No one cares enough about us to notice we're gone, so come on. Thaddeus held out his hand, and Edward took it, pulling himself up. Let's go. The two quietly walked away from the crowd of children, many even younger than they were, and taking the attention off of them as they hopped from roof to roof and around a corner. Thaddeus was right. No one noticed they left. They continued making their way through the city, carefully stepping across the wet and slippery stone tiles making up the architecture, trying to not fall off as the wind attempted to knock them over. The water gradually began to lower as they climbed higher towards the cathedral, at least enough for them to be able to wade through in favor of risking falling off a roof. There was carnage even up here. They were technically in Lower Petrichor after all. Even if they were further away from the broken levee, windows were cracked, doors ripped from their frames, roofs torn off, wood, plant life, even bodies floated through the water, slowly making their way to where it would be drained. Edward had covered his eyes by this point, one hand over his face to avoid having to look at everything, the other on Thaddeus' shoulder as they walked through the water coming up to their rib cages. Even now, Edward sang, and people heard him. In the midst of the destruction and sorrow from the hurricane, his voice gave people hope. There we go. Well, I can see why you want me to finish that. It ends on quite a bit more of a hopeful note than where I had just ended it and been, I think, maybe a little confused. And that is my fault, and I'm glad we got the rest of it there, Nugget. Thank you so much. So now on to the first actual day of Shoutout Saturday number 21, day 216. The prompt was, what beliefs do denizens of your world hold about the celestial bodies? Predwin the Great writes, malice to the moons, an entry in Rust and Blood. The people of turmoil and anarchy both mostly feel nothing but fear or hatred to the celestial bodies above. The moons have done nothing but bring ill omens. They have crumbled into the skies and let loose horrors and plagues. They are to be scorned forever and ever and ever. There is no redemption for such agents of calamity. Now, we know a little bit about the moons, and they do seem to suck. Nugget writes, mostly void, partly stars, an entry in Time Traveler and the Immortal. Broadly speaking, the structure of the pantheon is a pyramid of specificity. The minor gods, whose numbers are too high to count, cover niche or specific domains or man-made concepts. Concepts covering sleep, cooking, blacksmithing, music, art, etc. Specific, small, and a lot of them. The 6 major gods cover forces of nature on a broad and elemental scale: life, death, water, fire, air, and earth. But all of their domains are centric on their home planet to some extent. The primordial gods, time, chaos, and stella, are the embodiments of reality in the cosmos itself. From the 3 of them acting, the 3 parts of an atom, to the creation of the celestial bodies and physics itself, they are responsible for everything otherworldly. They're not simply linchpins for their domains either, like the created gods. They are their domains. Time is responsible for a lot of the strange warping in time, such as wormholes, for example, but when chaos broke off a piece of the infinite Earth, time repurposed it to create the moon, giving humans a lunar cycle to track their days and seasons with. Chaos's gift was the apple tree, but on a cosmic level, he's the embodiment of a black hole. He simply seeks to consume, destroy, and introduce random chance to how the cosmos collides on itself. But you can forgive early humans for not recognizing that by looking at the sky. Not with the beauty of Stella, after all. She created the stars, factories for the divine clay better known as stardust. She enjoys weaving a tapestry with them and writing the fates of humans in her designs. Her favorite star was the sun, which she gave a specific place to right next to the planets. After she had her actual son, Aurelius, he inherited her same powers, and being denied a domain of his own, he proclaimed himself the god of the sun. In reality, however, both hold power over any of the stars, including the sun. From the perspective of humans, the sky is where the gods live. They have their own realm in the astral plane where they watch over humanity from the stars. They know about Stella as the queen of the gods, or of perfection, of fate, and most of all the stars. But otherwise, the gods' affairs regard Earth, so why would there need to be a god of the final frontier other than Stella? But if that was the case, why is the moon shattered, and why do some of the accounts of the war describe the dreaded sunlight marking the demise of the divine? It doesn't matter now. The gods are dead, and humanity refuses to mourn for them. Very cool. Good little overview of the deity structure here. We've heard it a little bit before, but this kind of almost pyramid-like tiering to the fundamentality of the deities of your world, as well as some hints at something else. Cool. For day 217, the prompt was, what does the liturgy of a church/religious group in your world look like? Probing the Great writes, to hate is to pray, to serve, to be right. Brothers, sisters, look at your enemy and know that the anger you feel for their treachery is the very substance of prayer Ram needs. It is the very thing. On the Kamara-Omdao warfront, the Remexians are farther than ever from their chapels and hallowed grounds. They must pray doubly to ensure that Ram remains sated. They must go to their hands and knees every second they can and give prayer to Ram. They must grace its very breath and to their own dying at every opportunity. But there is another way to pray, a gift of knowledge from the very seven saints themselves. To hate is to pray, to serve, to be right. The Rahallowed, the Scripts, the Exians and Axians, all of them will fulfill their duty to hate, to serve, to be right. They will dutifully ensure that every day they hate any who would deny Ram or those who are not but frivolous traitors. They can never hate them enough. There is no amount of anger that could ever convey how much they have betrayed Remexia. They could all be tortured for centuries, millennium, infinity, and would only account for 1/1000th of the amount of hate that Ram and its people feel to them. It's so fascinating. I love this whole... So many cult-like or hateful religious organizations in world building are often, masquerade as being, we are bringing you peace, or we are, even a warring faction of religious entities, we are bringing you peace. But this is our prayer and our worship is the rightful hate of such entities, which is also not entirely uncommon, but not something I've seen quite done in the way that you're doing in Rust and Blood. And I think it's interesting. I know that Warhammer. Xenophobia is built directly into the religious systems of the humans there. So I'm sure that it's heavily inspired from that, I would assume. And it's well done. Nugget writes, communion. Ambrose felt like he was being watched. He always did here. Even when completely alone in the Grand Arc Cathedral, there was just something about the presence of the Great Ones that could be felt by the hair on the back of your neck. He wasn't even alone right now, not during Mass anyway. It was late, right when the sky began to dim, even further behind the blood-red clouds of evening. The lingering ting of the bells rested in the air a few seconds longer than it felt like they really should, reminding the city of the hour and that it was time for prayer. The bishops read out various sermons and chants at the head of the cathedral, speaking as if they were talking directly from the gods. Ambrose sat there at the bench, praying. His head held low, his eyes closed, the smell of incense filling his nose and his fingertips firmly tracing the handle of his cane in meditation. A deacon came by, holding a tray filled with blackened bread and small but intricate glasses of red wine. Ambrose opened his eyes, sensing his presence, and quietly accepted the offerings, raising his hand to his mouth and extending it outward, saying, "Thank you," in sign language. Ambrose took a bite of the black bread. It had the same texture and similar taste to sourdough, but with a strange, bitter and earthy tinge that would be hard to place if you didn't already know it was made with mold. His other hand held the glass of wine, his thumb gliding back and forth along the rim. He could see himself in the crimson reflection, staring back at him with a blank expression as he thought. He didn't want to be here. He never liked being here. He looked up at the statues, towering several stories above him. They have no face. They have no face, yet they stare at him with eyes that do not exist. They sing to him with a voice they do not have. He could feel his heart pounding in his throat. His mouth felt dry. He began to sip on the red wine he had been handed. Fortunately, it was a very weak wine. Ambrose always had trouble holding his liquor, but the flavor and smell still came through. There were a few drops of the holy blood mixed into the wine they served for communion, but not enough to taste, just enough to think about the implications of what you were drinking. "Lockhart," Thalia said with her sickeningly sweet voice as she sat next to Ambrose. "Long time no seeing you. That hold up inside." Ambrose said nothing, not even looking at her. "I heard about your prognosis. I was so sorry when I found out. You and half the church, it seems, Miss Vane. If there's anything I can do..." "No," Ambrose said sharply. "You know as well as anyone else this will happen eventually. Ambrose once again looked up towards the depictions of his gods, wincing internally as he did so. It's just how the decade shows its love after all. Pain is the price we pay for favor, Lockhart. How it must feel to be part of your sacred bloodline. Ambrose paused, examining the communion glass, empty now, but streaked with red. I will take my leave, Ambrose said, reaching for his cane and standing up. I've been here long enough. Cool little narrative piece for us, Nugget. Thank you. I remember this Thalia character, this secretly, or maybe not so secretly, cruel or mean individual who masquerades as a very kind person. I think that was who this was supposed to be anyway. If I'm wrong, let me know. I am happy to be corrected. For day 218, the prompt was, what are some common pregnancy traditions / rites in your world? And this comes from Nugget in the Discord. You'll notice I have Predwin the Great wrote Born at War here. This is an entry in Rust and Blood. It has some subject matter that I didn't really want to go too long on the channel, but it is really well written. I recommend you come to the Discord server if you're not already there and you read it for yourself because it's really well done. It's a little gross, a little unpleasant, but well written. And if you're okay with some more unpleasant content for the most part, then I would recommend you read it. It's well done. So we will move on from there, from that recommendation, to Nugget's entry, pregnancy in Petrichor and entry in Petrichor. It is often a tradition for expectant mothers to wear a wrap of fabric around their belly to provide support for their belly and back. The bottom layer is made from a strong yet stretchable fabric, providing structure, while a more decorative overlayer is often personalized with dyes and embroidery for the baby. Enchantments are often woven into them as well if they can afford it. After the birth, the decorated fabric is given to the baby as a swaddle, blanket, or even just a keepsake, while the mother often continues to wear the underlayer to aid in recovery. In the event of a stillbirth or miscarriage, a tragically common occurrence in Petrichor even to those who can afford healthcare, the fabric is bleached, a symbolic way of depicting the hand of the pale god of decay claiming the child. Pregnancy is within the decade's domain as a natural part of death, rot, and rebirth. It's something of an old wives' tale to leave out food to rot in the final months of pregnancy, which is thrown out when labor starts. The idea being that you offered something to the decade for a safe birth and a healthy baby. But, as with most old wives' tales, this tradition isn't taken all too seriously today. One that is still frequently practiced is various soap or tea recipes using natural herbs, flowers, and fungus mixed with rainwater. Once again, a way of appeasing the decade during a fragile time, but also serves a practical purpose for simply being good for the baby and mother, such as helping with blood flow or vitamins throughout pregnancy, or a means of relaxing the muscles and the cervix during labor. This emphasis on nature during pregnancy extends to the birth as well, where water-based and midwife-assisted home births without the use of medical-grade painkillers tend to be standard in Petrichor. We are born drowned and swaddled within the waters of your mourning gods. Weep now not, child, for now your mother takes their place in her warm embrace. Good stuff. Really grounded, but with that twist of interesting tradition based around your own world buildings like history and context. For day 219, the prompt was, is there a regular competition of some kind in your world? What is it? And is there a prize / reward? Per the Great writes, Flun Aash Svatnaga, an entry in Rust and Blood. The festival of Flun Aash Svatnaga, or Rot Pillar Ritual, is a reoccurring, non-planned week celebrated by the children of Ragash, where the various sects will make mighty feasts for the first 2 days, then take to the warfront with a challenge between sects. The cultists run out in the trench lines in higher numbers than ever, swarming Caldathan fortified positions in the thousands. Any cultists that manage to get inside the bunkers or camps will knock as many soldiers as they can unconscious, dragging as many away as they can carry back to their sect's bivouac. The Caldathan Raonian or Halan soldiers are tied to a wooden pillar in the dozens within the cultist camp. Once the sect has their materials, they begin the construction of the Svatnaga Tredddan, or in Ramspeak, steel-frame dreadnought. The sect will do their best to forge and decorate the most beautiful-looking central pillar for their dreadnought. This beauty doesn't extend only to the cultists. The patterns, frames, and colors painted on are all very reminiscent of Orcadian design. The designs are often floral or sea-based, fish, crabs, and mostly non-horrific cult things. The only part of the design that is often unsettling, before the melding, is the seal of Ragash placed on the bottom of the pillar. Once the pillar is complete, the ritual may begin. The captured soldiers are forced against the pillar, nailed in place and wrapped in barbed wire screaming. They are then bound, flesh and spirit, to the dreadnought, forever forced to power the machine with their agony. The sects then reconvene near the camp inhabited by the Lord of Flies and hold a festival, parading around their dreadnoughts like floats in the street. The cultists will hold votes to decide who made the best Svatnaga, who captured Ragash's beauty the best. The winners will be granted extra munitions and will often be joined by members of other sects, boosting their numbers and power in the war. The festival of Flun Aash Svatnaga, despite leading to massive Caldathan casualties and missing persons, leaves their half of the front open as they travel back to the south. The orcs may be numerous, but all it takes is one shotgun shell to kill them. While the festival happens every year, the Murricanians try their best to hide the actual date it will occur to protect their advancements while they celebrate away from the war. Unfortunately for the cultists, they only accumulate in numbers in the thousands when the festival has begun, making it easy for Caldatha to recognize even without spies. Ooh, very gross, but very good. Well done. Kind of a cool getting together and making art in a very horrific way, I guess, but nice. Nugget writes, a marathon, an entry in Time Traveler and the Immortal. Your feet ache more and more with every step, but you must keep going. You have to. You just have to keep going. You can rest later. It will all be for naught if you stop now. You've been up for days. You first went to Sparta. That seemed so long ago now. Your legs felt fresh then. Athens needed reinforcements against the Persians. You, Phidippides, a herald, were sent for that reason. The trek was not an easy one. 153 miles across rough terrain, up a mountain and back, and for what? Sparta refused to help. Not for 10 days anyway, and by then it would be too late. So you went back to Athens and were sent therefore to Marathon to help instead. They were largely outnumbered and were in a stalemate for days, but somehow the Athenians won. The Persians retreated, but that wasn't the end, no. The Persians were going back to Athens, still undefended, as our army was here. There was a non-insignificant number of people in Athens who were willing to hand over the city if Persia got there, people who didn't know they had lost. They needed to know. Quickly, before that happens, so you had to go tell them. 26 miles from Marathon to Athens. After several days of running, and the rough terrain of Greece still in your armor, you just have to keep running. You can see Athens now, you just have to keep running. Even as your feet bleed from the ground, you just have to keep running. Even as your lungs burn, you just have to keep running. You ran out of sweat hours ago, but you just have to keep going. Nike, you yell, finally making it into the city, screaming to whatever could hear you. Nike, rejoice, we conquer. Athens won against the Persians, Nike. You feel your head grow heavy. The adrenaline that kept you going this whole time leaves suddenly as you feel how exhausted you are. You had been running for days. You collapse, dead. Your message had been delivered. Now you can rest. This is a cool take on the origins of the marathon. I mean, literally, this is your historical fiction take on that, and that's super fun. We haven't done a lot of historical fiction yet. Obviously, your whole setting is, but we haven't had someone really write like very direct, barely historical fiction based off of at least a mostly agreed to be true historical sort of mythology piece. Cool, awesome. For day 220, the prompt was, is there anyone who is propping up a major faction or nation in your world? And this came from the Wonder in the Discord, and he added some extra context. In a sense, what organization is just around because someone is carrying it? E.g., Gilliman from Warhammer 40k, Anakin and Obi-Wan in the Jedi Order. Now, Prime the Great, his submission is Rust and Blood spoilers. I think even the name, because it was all spoilerized. So go to this timestamp if you're a player, and there will be no spoilers after that. Prime the Great writes, Persifact, Eternal, Immovable, Immutable, an entry in Rust and Blood. There are stories on the warfront, tales of a being man-sized, floating above the charges of orcs and cultists. There are stories of bunkers vanishing overnight, concrete and rebar and soldiers gone. There are rumors of a creature, an eternal monster, a beast of immense power, a being that can lift armies into the sky and bring them down at the speed of light, yawning portals releasing countless hundreds of sky carves, great sum circles bringing firestorms, monolithic daemons fearful of the one who bound them. There are tales of something alien, something primordial, something eternal. I am eternal. Parzifact, the god behind everything, the god that commands Aratex, that commands the orcs, that forces law upon the Murricanians, that bends archdemons to its will, the prime fragment of Nullarod. Parzifact is completely, utterly omnipotent, as are all of its kin, the other Eternals, the other gods of this world, and yet useless. They are useless. The other Eternals take too much pride in themselves to even think about getting their claws dirty. They sit in their frozen bastions, drinking wine, feasting on lavish meals, and playing poker. All useless, useless things. They leave everything to Parzifact, their mighty warrior, the lesser Eternal without pride, without the best of them. Parzifact, or perfect, in the mortal tongues, has done everything for its kin. From the creation of the orc cloning vats to making vassals of the Murricanians, Parzifact is the one who brought the beach to its knees. Parzifact is the one who made room for Ragash's deacon. Parzifact is the crutch upon which eternity is held up. Parzifact will conquer. I will conquer. Parzifact will not fail. It cannot fail. It is perfect. It pushes past its pride and gets in the filthy mud. It travels to other worlds and offers salvation to madmen. In exchange for their services, it alone will be victorious in this hovel, this world, this place called turmoil. Ooh, very well done. I liked the feeling of that. That was a fun one to read. Parzifact, is this the entity, I'm assuming, that we hear from at the end of some of the things? Very cool. I like this idea a lot. I'm kind of still thinking about it, and I don't have all my thoughts together, but pretty neat stuff. Welcome back to the non-spoiler zone, and this is the Wanderer writing Aris, keeping the Elvish Council together since 6000 ST, since time existed. The Elvish Council oversees the entirety of the elves. Its rulers at the beginning was Anduin, his wife, and their 6 children and their spouses. While Anduin is beloved, wise, and powerful, he is their father, and as children grow older, very few of them want to listen and be under their father their entire existence. They love him, but are independent monarchs who dislike the idea of living in his great shadow forever. So while being the High King, stepped down and allowed them to decide their own leader. This led to conflict. This is where Aris comes in. She's the queen of the Umber Elves, West Elves. Well, not the eldest, third child, not the greatest elven warrior, though Atashra thought he should lead it, and not the most arcanely gifted either. What Aris has that the others lack is she learned all of their crafts. She learned how to battle from Atashra, being a very competent fighter, even if behind her elder brother in skill. She studied nature, arcana, and survival, and learned its crafts like her older sister, Sarkoil. She helped foster her younger brother, Frosnir's, interests in poetry and the arts, mentoring him as he grew older. And she aided her sister, Maradan's exploration of the stars. Even when her youngest brother, Besombre, had a major falling apart and went to war against Anduin, she held as a neutral party and eventually convinced Besombre to allow peace. While Aris isn't the most powerful in her family's council, she has the best relationship with each of them. This she built the palace where she hosts the council and her siblings. Time and time again, these very different monarchs have neared hostilities towards each other, but time and time again, either by wisdom, by reason, by social customs, or by the fact that they can agree on one thing more than nearly all the others they adore, their sister, wars and pride, is secondary to that. Nice, I like that we're getting some more elves, some more of the Endrin elves. It's always interesting when you have a character that seems very benevolent in their capacity to keep peace, but maybe there's something else going on there. Maybe not. Maybe with this character, Aris, there isn't anything, but I always find that kind of compelling story element or world-building element of maybe there's something else going on under the surface that this person is kind of playing this power play with. Nugget writes, "Your gods have abandoned you, an entry in Time Traveler and the Immortal. A storm was brewing, not just in the sky, but of the very stars. The gods were becoming neglectful, more wrathful, more focused on themselves than humanity. A crowd was gathering in the courtyard around a man, perfect in complexion, with glowing gold specks in his hair, tentacle tattoos wrapping down his back and arms, and dressed in a navy blue cloak embellished with a golden star chart. He carried himself with the confidence of a god, as if he were more important than the king he stands before. He addressed the crowd. I regret to inform you that your gods, your protectors, have abandoned you." He paused. Letting his words marinate with his audience in silence for a moment, he pointed out towards the ocean and cliffside. Out on that horizon once stood Atlantis, the most prosperous city-state in the Mediterranean, and one even the gods envied. Look out now, and see the ocean which covers it. The gods destroyed Atlantis in their pride, and they are far from done. Think. Think of the famines, the poor harvests, the winters, the fires. Think of your starving children and your freezing homes. Think of the natural disasters which sent this. Tell me, when was the last time you prayed? When did they last answer? Silence. Small murmurs broke out, pondering when the last time the stars heard their prayers really was. Emrys smiled. Poor things, he said. You don't remember, you can't even recall the last time the Omnimatter held you in her arms, cradling and comforting her children like any mother should. Feel not alone, my friends. She abandoned me too. They all did. Atlantis was simply the beginning. The gods have ceased caring about their creations. They think they are better than us. They wish to destroy us. They see mortals as far below them. They think us pets. They think us weak. They think us human. The gods plan war amongst themselves, a disaster our world has little hope to survive. They will not care about their effect on us ants below them. They will flatten everything you hold dear to prove a point to themselves. What is it that you want? The king broke his monologue. What I want? What I want is to avoid extinction. I wish to stop pretending they're going to save us. You expect us to believe you? Who even are you? I am but a humble servant, your majesty, a messenger of the gods whom stole immortality. But should you still doubt me, I invite you to strike me down. Allow me to prove my word to you." The king thought, wondering if he should call his bluff, before gesturing to a guard. The guard approached Aurelius, drawing his sword and raising it high. Emrys simply stood there as the blade dropped and sliced cleanly through his neck. His head hit the ground with a loud thud, and the rest of his body staggered and steadied. Gasps rang from the crowd as Emrys still stood and began to feel around for his severed head. "Right," Emrys said, picking up his head. "Humble servant and messenger of the gods." He firmly placed his head back onto his neck, where it reattached with a brief yet blinding light. "Loyal to them no more. Do you believe my warnings now?" The king looked down at him, pale and horrified by the bloody display. Emrys smiled before addressing the larger crowd, which had grown significantly since he started. "I appreciate your time. Heed my warnings, I beg you. War is on the horizon, and your gods have abandoned us all." Nice, Nugget. Really, there's been a lot of fun prose work and a lot of fun dialogue work lately from kind of a lot of people, Nugget especially, and I'm enjoying it. I'm getting a feel for how I like to read it. For day 221, the prompt was, "What's a strange piece of high-class etiquette in your world?" Brightwin the Great writes, "Scarf skink etiquette and entry in Rust and Blood." During the meetups of noble families, many an individual will bring their scarf skink, built together day 145, companions to balls, parties, and other leisurely activities. The number of scarf skinks present in parties can sometimes outnumber the guests, depending on the host of the party or guest that may have many scarf skinks. In the 14th year of sovereignty, on the 50th of Alum, a party consisting of 20 nobles and 73 scarf skinks in a ball hosted by Hugo Vross. The consequences of the numerous scarf skinks resulted in severe political arguments between several houses, ending in a more bitter atmosphere between houses than before the ball. Hugo, the host of the party, decided that a list of rules regarding scarf skinks was for the best, and wrote the following rules to be read by all noble houses. No more than 2 scarf skinks are to be carried by any one person. Individual houses are restricted to 4 scarf skinks total amongst each other. Handlers are responsible for informing hosts of how many skinks they will bring. All scarf skinks are to be properly trained in sanitary processes and be capable of responding to all standard commands from their handler. Treats for good behavior should be provided by the host of any meetup for all guests. Hosts must have a clearly defined area for scarf skinks to relieve themselves. Areas should be marked clearly with the color orange or purple, preferably both. Handlers of scarf skinks must train their pets to recognize the above-mentioned colors as in correlation to relieving themselves. Food for all skinks in attendance must be provided by the host and curated to individual skink diets as requested by guests. Requests must be made within reason. If scarf skinks are to be in attendance, no cats or dogs may be permitted within the party area. All cats and or dogs must be separated into separate rooms from the skinks or simply be left outside during the duration of the party. No sulfurous compounds are to be present at the party grounds. All insectoid treats must be properly sterilized and voided of miasma. Absolutely no boil beast-based treats for skinks. All cloaking-compatible skinks are to be properly clothed and decorated as to be easily identifiable in the event of wandering. Additionally, all skinks in attendance must wear a bell somewhere along their body. Do not use copper-based bells. These rules have allowed nobility to bring their precious pets and still enjoy themselves, increasing friendship greatly between houses. Nice, great stuff. A lot of interesting depth here. I'm curious about the copper involved in the bells. I'm curious about the history behind the insectoid tree problem, why no boil beast, all this stuff. Awesome, fun questions to be asked and to be expanded on here. Nugget writes, dinner etiquette of the Second Estate and entry in Petrichor. The Second Estate places a great deal of importance on etiquette, as one might expect. They are the type of people who have several spoons set at the dinner table, and you will face scrutiny if you pick the wrong fork to eat with. But regardless, some common etiquette rules to keep in mind so as to not be a complete faux pas. Do not sit at the table immediately. You will instead meet in the sitting room to mingle with the other guests before being invited in by the host. If you've been invited to a dinner party and you accept, you are required to show up unless there is a dire emergency. Not doing so is an insult. Sit where you are assigned. At larger parties, only converse with those around you. Do not attempt to talk over the entire table. Nobles are to be referred to by their proper names. Take off your gloves before eating. This allows better dexterity for utensils and has the added root in revealing the scars the council members tend to have on their hands from being sworn in. Hold proper posture at all times. Do not slouch. Keep your elbows off the table. Don't lean over the table. If you cannot reach a particular dish, do not reach across the table for it or stand from your seat. Ask a servant to retrieve it for you. Do not directly acknowledge the staff unless necessary. Memorize what forks and spoons are for what types of dishes. Seriously, the amount of emphasis placed on this is foolish and really goes to show how many of these etiquette rules are the result of the aristocracy being bored and having a complex. After eating, you must stay for at least another hour. You wouldn't want the host to think you are only there for the food. These are only the superficial common sense rules. True formal dinner parties involving the Second Estate have lists of rules that could take weeks if not months to memorize, something poor Edward found out the hard way when he was first courting Ambrose and started attending such events. Nice, great stuff. Nice little addition of some fun things, mostly based on I'm assuming pretty real world etiquette for dinner or parties of higher class. To be fair, I don't actually know very much about that though, so I could be wrong. And for the final day of Shoutout Saturday number 21, we have day 222, and the prompt was, are there any special numbers in your world? Why or why not? And what are some examples? Perwin the Great writes, Thord, an entry in Rust and Blood. Thord is a dwarven term referring to a number above another by an indiscernible amount. The number is most often used to estimate a rough numerical value of something. Soldiers, munitions, vehicles. Thord is placed after the number lower than its estimate. Halud Thord, 100 to 200. While there is no defined upper limit, it is normal to assume that the number ends with the next tier of the lowest digit in the number excluding zeros. 1 to 200 max, 110 to 120 max, 111 to 102 max. The number is incredibly popular amongst dwarven quartermasters who don't like their jobs. Oh, interesting. Really interesting idea. So something Thord implies a range or has some rule sets that imply ranges. That's kind of a cool idea. I like this, Breadwin. And for our final entry, the Wanderer writes, Endrin's cultural numbers. In the dawn of existence in Endrin, there formed a culture around numbers. These were used in their iconography, their poems, and writing, appearing in art and in government structures. As this was the first culture to really form in Endrin, it had an influence on all of this to follow. The numbers are 1, 3, 6, and 12, stemming 90% from my affinity for certain numbers. 1 is special because it is the number of oneself. You are a 1. It represents emotions, choice, and one's most personal self. 3 is special because it is the smallest number required for a council. There will always be a majority on an issue. It represents wisdom, morals, and intelligence. 6 is seen as special as it is the number of the 6 knights, the elder gods who didn't turn evil. It represents power, protection, defense, knights, and rulership. 12 is the last special number as it is the lowest that holds all of the others. It has oneself, it has wisdom in council, and it can contain 2 groups of knights. It represents everything, the cosmos, the greater world at large. It represents groups and the people. While in practice, these numbers aren't the end of all things, they're more a thematic consistency they use. 1, being the personal number, is reserved for imagery of oneself. 3 is used as made as the smallest groups divisible in legal systems. Councils will be a minimum of 3, judges will be in sets of 3, or the king, and governmental research groups are in pairs of 3. 6 is the number of protectors. Paladin orders try to send paladins on missions in groups of 6. Knights are often split groups of 6 when practical. Guard patrols are selected in groups of 6. 12 is a number picked when representing everything. Great little coverage on some numerology systems for Endrin. I like it. Very, very neat. Well, as always, thank you to everyone who wrote this time. We had a pretty substantial amount of words. I think we're doing pretty good at almost a consistent 5,000-ish almost every time now, give or take a few hundred in either direction with the occasional big jump towards 7K, which is kind of crazy that we have a group that's writing that much every single week. That's builds pretty fast. So thanks so much, everyone who's always contributing this stuff. I'm glad that people look forward to it. These videos don't get a lot of viewership, but I kind of love doing this just because people do seem to get a kick out of it, and I actually forces me to sit down and read people's stuff, which I really do enjoy. I'm just bad at doing it when I don't have some kind of external motivator like this, which I think a lot of us understand. But if you want to see more of this, if you want to support the channel, then like, comment, subscribe, do all of the interesting things that the algorithm will hopefully love you all for. And either way, if you don't want to do that, it's okay. This is going to keep coming out. This is going to still be free. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful Saturday or whatever day it is that you're watching this. Goodbye.